think I got that.
How do you find your balance
How do you find your balance?
while living in a city like Brooklyn?
I think in order to find your balance, we have to do a lot of work about aligning with our intuition. Most people become off balance because they're just not in tune with themselves. They don't know how to follow their inner voice and become alignment with the guidance that comes spiritually. And when we become disconnected that way, you're just not going to be balanced. You're not going to be in harmony because you don't know how to discern how to, like, which feelings to follow. You know, when we're disconnected, we often live like a reactionary life. So we're often like mixing our feelings with our thinking about things that causes an emotional reaction. And then that emotional reaction, we align with that as if it's our feelings, not understanding that it's been kind of impacted by the way we've thought about something. Which then that has a lot to do with perspective and information. You know what I mean? But there is a way to experience life um, that's more about that pure feeling you get when you encounter something. That pure feeling that comes up when you're faced with the circumstance. Like, what is the first reaction that you have? And learning to trust that. We kind of get trained into distrusting it and using logic to approach the world. But more naturally, it's really about impressions and feelings. That's instinct. That's instinct. That's intuition. That's spiritual guidance. And I think a separation from that is why most people are suffering. You know, they've either taken jobs or they've pursued a path in education, or they're seeking love and relationship based on knowing, based on archetypes that are imposed upon them, based on ways that they're told you're supposed to do things, which is someone else's way. It's not necessarily your own. It might have worked for somebody else, but just because it worked for them doesn't mean it's going to work for you. So, like, really, we need to learn to understand that, like, with the things that people teach us and the people tell us, they're offering the best based on what they know and what they have, but that may not be our best. You know what I mean? And we need to learn how to become in alignment with our best, like become in alignment with our truth and like what's pure to us. And that might not make sense to anybody else, but we also have to be courageous enough to be like, I don't care if it doesn't make sense to you. It makes sense to me. Just watch. And often, if we are in alignment, like with our truth, it may take time, but at some point, there's a reward. Like, at some point, it starts to work. You step into your flow, and it might take 5 years or 10 years or 20 years. You know what I mean? Yet, if we're faithful and we're still following our path, I really do believe there's a reward. You know what I mean? There's a harmony. There's a balance that comes from it. That most people in society nowadays really never access, yet we worship the people who have accessed it. If you think about that, like, we worship success, we worship celebrity, we worship happiness, all these people who we look up to and who we idolize, they've followed their path, they've listened to their calling, they've stepped into it boldly and committed to it. You know what I mean? So we're always shown examples of it. It's just that we are also led to believe that there's just something exceptional about those people. You know what I mean? And we're always looking at the extreme example, not understanding that there's people, if we want to take celebrity, right? We have all the famous people with the names that everybody knows and that are all in the news and are all over social media. Yet I personally know artists that live a very abundant life, and they travel and they just make their art and they just make their music, and they've been sustaining themselves for decades, not doing a job they don't like. You know what I mean? So if you could make your art and make $50,000 a year and sustain your life and live well, that seems like success to me, opposed to someone who's doing a job they hate and they're stressed out and they're tired all the time, making $50,000 a year, yet often, or even $100,000 a year, and people might see that as successful because they have the house and the car or whatever. You know what I mean? But to me, I'm looking at the person that uses their time to do the things they love and are able to sustain themselves and live at peace and be happy. That to me is more success. You know what I mean? That to me is flourishing. That's living in abundance. And that's my belief, But I think that we have to start thinking a little bit differently and looking at what we value. You know what I mean? How much do we have to give to receive what we receive? Are we wasting more of our time and energy than it's worth? Or can we maybe have a little bit less material things in life, but a lot more peace of mind and a lot more happiness. Or we can actually have both. There's a possibility of having peace of mind and happiness and having all this abundance if you do it properly. You know what I mean? If you take the proper steps. But I think balance comes from, and abundance comes from learning how to really listen and to follow like the lighted path. You know what I'm saying? It's like if you take a walk in the woods, sometimes you're just drawn to a specific path and you don't know why and there's no reason. You know what I mean? But you just feel, I want to go that way. I think that life is very much the same way. It's just like I want to go that way, and sometimes there's something really great at the end of the path.